All right. I will call the Village of Cottage Grove Village of Board of Trustees board meeting to order. It is Monday, June 15th. It is just about 6:31 on my watch, at least. We are holding this meeting via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we will start with roll call from Lisa of the Trustees Board.
Allen.
Present.
Lindbergh.
Present.
Murphy.
Here.
Ratcliffe.
Here.
Valencia.
Present.
Vandervelde.
Present.
Williams.
Present.
We are all here.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Again, this is a Zoom meeting. What is in the chat and as well as on video and audio is being recorded for posterity, and as well as Lisa's taking vigilant notes. The public is certainly welcome to join. There is a link on our agenda for the computer, tablet, etc., or you can also join via audio as well, and that is also on the top of the agenda. So we will start. We have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 5 is discuss and consider the meeting minutes from our regular meeting on June 1st. Any comments or corrections, or is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting. I'm blanking on the date, June 1st.
Correct.
Second.
That was a split decision there. I think I heard Troy first, but Lisa, you can
Go for it,
Troy. All
You
right.
could take it out in the parking lot.
There you go.
You win.
All right, then any further discussion or corrections or edits or anything else from the board? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, item 6 is a presentation to the board, the presentation from Joe Parisi, Dane County Executive, and I see that Joe is, at least I see him on video, and it looks like, Joe, you're still muted, so please feel free to take the floor anytime you would like. And thank you again for joining the Village of Cottage Grove Board meeting this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to address you. I thought it might be helpful to stop by and talk a little bit about kind of 30,000 feet, about a number of the county's efforts, and be available for any questions that you may have or any information you'd like me to share or follow up with. Unlike most local boards, you have the benefit of having a county supervisor as a village trustee, so you're likely familiar with a lot of what I have to talk about, but I think that's a really great synergy to be able to have that connection. So it's really good to be here with you tonight. So as you know, it's been where we have a little over 3 months now into the main work that we've been doing in our COVID-19 response. And we were the first county in the state to have a positive test result. We were, I believe, the 12th locality in the entire nation. So one of the kind of silver linings of that event was that in Dane County, we kind of clicked into gear and started looking at guidelines and precautions a lot earlier than a lot of folks around the country. And what we've learned, certainly in hindsight, is the sooner you get on something like this and do what's necessary, the better off you will be in the long run. So in Dane County, we actually began enacting guidelines before statewide guidelines went into place. They followed soon after that. And, we've all been through, it's all too familiar to us now. What a few months ago seemed like a very foreign concept we're all, have all been adjusting to. And there have been a lot of impacts to that. In the county side, we focused on, and we continue to, on coordination between the local municipalities, healthcare providers, et cetera, by activating our emergency operations center and coordinating those efforts. We looked at, initially looking at the places where people would be most vulnerable for an outbreak and for spread. For example, we locked down the county nursing home to visitors right of way. And then in the community, Dane County started looking at the challenges that could potentially arise among our homeless population. When we looked at the homeless shelters, both the day and night shelters for men, women, and families, they were, very vulnerable to an outbreak there. So we began a pretty enormous project, and we began moving people who were experiencing homelessness into hotels. And as of today, we still have over 400 people in local hotels, and the county is paying for that rent and the wraparound services and food, et cetera, for the folks there. We really needed to do that to be able to achieve proper social distancing. So we have also people are staying at the night shelters, the Salvation Army Women's Shelter. The men's shelter has been moved to Warner Park, to their community center. And then the Beacon Day Resource Center still has folks staying there. So one of the efforts that we've undertaken has been to work with the families we have in hotels right now to try to secure them housing, because at some point we will have to transition out of the hotels. But we've really tried to focus particularly on just basic needs throughout the community. One of the first things we looked at was the fact that, and now I think we're up to around 37,000 people have filed for unemployment in Dane County alone. And that immediately began impacting people's access, the ability to be able to access food. And that combined with the supply chains that our farmers and growers were facing challenges with, presented a challenge both on the grower side and on the consumer side. So using CARES funding, we initiated a 3-month, $3 million partnership with Second Harvest Foods. And we're in the process of extending that for another 3 months with another $3 million. And what that partnership has done is built a bridge between our local farmers and growers who are in need of markets because of their supply chain issues and drop in demand, with our consumers who are in need of food right now. And the initial we get reports on how these partnerships are going. And our ask was that Second Harvest would purchase as much food as possible from local growers. And the first reports are that about 95% of the food that they've purchased with these dollars has been from our local farmers and growers. So that's been a pretty productive partnership. It's a bad situation for everyone, but we're committed to doing everything we can to make sure that our families have access to food in Dane County, certainly through the challenging times that the pandemic is posing. And, one of the many reasons that that's happening is because of job loss and because of the impact on local businesses in particular. So another area we looked at and decided we needed to act on sooner than later was doing what we could to help out local businesses. So we invested $10.8 million in a partnership with Dane Buy Local, which is an organization comprised of local businesses. And we put together a grant program with them to help throw a lifeline to local businesses to help keep them afloat, particularly before the phased reopening started too, when nothing was coming in, just to help them survive so that there's still a business remaining when we're at a place where we can start to ramp up again and just do what we can to help those businesses. So that 10.8 million is out there. I think we're at well over half of it has been distributed already. It's just in the process. There's very much demand out there. And so they're doing everything they can to get those checks out to the local businesses as soon as possible. Another piece that we knew early on we would have to watch out for is as far as businesses that were vulnerable to going under and businesses that will be critical as we start to reopen the economy was childcare. And so we initiated a partnership with the childcare sector in Dane County, working with community coordinated childcare. We invested $3 million in a partnership with them. And through this partnership, every single licensed childcare provider in the county, the only requirement is you have to be licensed, is eligible for a grant. And those grants will range anywhere from $1,400 to $15,000, depending on the size of the operation. Because we found early on, there were surveys across the nation that said up to half of childcare providers could go out of business due to COVID. And so we're determined not to let that happen here in Dane County. So that partnership is well underway also. And then the next piece that we've looked at and comes back to housing and shelter. And with the unprecedented job loss that we've experienced, we have more people than we've ever experienced, certainly in our generation, who simply can't make the rent in Dane County and across the state and across the nation. So locally, there was a moratorium on evictions, but that moratorium came to an end. And so we wanted to get money in the pipeline to help stave off evictions. So we entered into a $10 million partnership with the Tenant Resource Center, who will administer grants. They will work with tenants and their landlords, tenants who are behind in their rent, and work with the landlords to come up with an agreement so that they can help get caught up on the rent and in exchange be able to stay where they're at moving forward. And so we want to make sure people know about this. A lot of renters know about it. We want to make sure landlords know about it, because obviously in a situation like this, the renters are hurting, as are the landlords, because they have to, most landlords pay their mortgages from those rent payments. So we're doing everything we can to get that money out the door, and that's going to be moving really, very quickly, very soon. Another piece that we've focused on is trying to help in the testing area and the personal protection area. As you may know, we recently put together a program by which local first responders, local communities as yourself, can work with the emergency management of Dane County to get access to PPE for all first responders. We want to make sure that folks who are putting themselves out there, who show up for us when we need them, have access to what they need and to testing. So any first responders throughout the county who want access to testing, we can get that for them, and we will pay for that testing for them, both for the equipment and testing and the cost of testing, because we want to make sure that those folks have access to what they need. As you probably all know by now too, we've set up a mass testing site at the Alliant Energy Center that is seeing a lot of business, and we encourage people to continue going there. What we're seeing is what we thought. We're seeing more positives overall. Our percentage is staying about the same. But one of the metrics we really needed to hit that we weren't able to before was being able to test enough people. And we're seeing a lot of people come through and get tested who turned out to be positive, who did not have symptoms. So that's why we urge everyone, whether you're symptomatic or not, if you've been out and about, it's really good to know if you may be positive, because we know that a lot of the spread happens when people are either pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic. Particularly now as we're heading into the phases of reopening, as I'm sure you're aware, today was the beginning of phase 2, which roughly means that all businesses can open at 50% capacity, along with caveats as far as personal protection and distancing and other activities. The good and the challenging news with this is, people desperately need to be open. We need more economic activity. It's been just an unprecedented challenge for folks. But at the same time, what we see not only here, but across the country is, people are tired of this, right? It's, we want it to be done. We want COVID to be over with, but it's not. It's just as contagious and just as dangerous as it was 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And we need to get that message across, and we need to make people realize that now, actually even more than ever, because folks are going back out and interacting more with people, we need to be careful. Please wear that mask, do all the things that we know we're supposed to do. It's easy to forget and let your guard down. I went out, for example, in my house the other day, and I was talking to someone in a car, and I completely forgot for 5 seconds about COVID, and I reached in and shook this person's hand, and I turned around and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I just do? So, we have to remain, mindful of this, because it's just critical. We're seeing in a number of states, a couple of dozen states across the nation now, especially those that opened up early, we're seeing some real spikes, and we're starting to see capacity issues in hospitals, et cetera. So we just need to be really careful, and all of you as community leaders, I think it can be really helpful just to continue to spread the word. I mean, one day we will be through this. One day we will have a vaccine, and this will just be a terrible memory that hopefully we learn a lot of lessons from. But it's important for folks to remember that we're still in the middle of it, and people can get really sick, and people can die from this. And we need to protect, our citizens, especially the folks who are more vulnerable, senior citizens, and people with underlying health conditions. I think maybe, there's a lot more to talk about, but again, you guys are familiar with a lot of this. That's kind of the county 30,000-foot overview. I'm happy to answer any questions or touch on anything else you may have questions about. And if there's something I don't know the answer to off the top of my head, I'm happy to follow up with anyone with an email or a phone call. So thanks again for giving me a few minutes to chat with you.
And again, Joe, we know you're very busy, and we certainly appreciate you making time for Cottage Grove. I guess my question before I kick it over to the board members is just what do you see the greatest risk as we go through these phase 2, phase 3, et cetera? You already touched on the fact that, people are kind of forgetting that we're still in a pandemic. But where do you see that as you talk to the county health providers and the experts in this area?
Yeah, I think what makes when I talk to folks at public health, what makes folks the most nervous is kind of the mass gatherings, and especially the indoor gatherings, because this thing's going to last into the fall and into winter. And while outdoor is safer, it's still not fail-safe, right? You can still get this outside. So I think, one of my biggest concerns, and again, one of my asks, is that people seriously consider wearing masks whenever they're out and about. Even if you're going to the hardware store, if you're going to the grocery store, even when people are trying to social distance, it doesn't always happen. And think of your mask as a way of giving back to your community, because what we're really doing when we wear masks is helping others. We're loving our neighbor, right? It's the 80-year-old woman who might be grocery shopping in front of us. It's our parents. It's our grandparents. It's our neighbor who has, who's on dialysis. So folks who are really vulnerable to this disease. So wearing a mask is a really good way to give back to your community. Unfortunately for some folks, wearing or not wearing a mask has become, associated with politics and one view or the other. I'm really hoping we can get past that. We've done our best in county government to base everything we're doing on advice from public health experts, because politics should never enter public health. So when we look at the metrics for going through our phases, that's all based on the science of public health. And when we look at things like physical distancing and wearing face masks, that's all based on the data. So, my concern again does come back to people just, having fatigue over this, tired of it, and maybe not being taking precautions that we should all still be taking.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from board members?
This is Sarah Valencia. Thank you, Joe Parisi, for coming to our meeting. I have 3 questions, so I'll put them out there and let you answer them if you can. The first one is around data. You mentioned, number 1, job loss, and number 2, financial support for businesses. Is there any way you can get us specific data as far as the job loss in Cottage Grove? And is there any way you can get us data on the businesses of Cottage Grove that you have helped to support, or that's part of the CARES Act program that you guys are working on? And then my third question is a little bit more operational in that I know the plan is that next week, Alliant Energy Center, the National Guard is set to end their work there. And I'm just curious if you could speak to what the plan is for offering community-wide testing once the National Guard is done with their service at Alliant.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm glad you did, because I forgot to mention that. So we have been successful in getting the Guard to stay now through into August. I believe it's the 3rd week in August. Don't quote me on that, but we were, because you're right, originally they were going to leave June 24th, I think. But we were able to talk them into staying longer. So what we're doing in the meantime while we do have them, we're building up our capacity through public health to do testing. And we're doing that in a number of ways. There's the first responder testing that I mentioned, for example, that's available to all communities. We're also going to be, when I say we, I mean the public health department, going out into different neighborhoods and communities, particularly communities that might have folks with problems that don't have as easy access to transportation, to build out, to take some testing into different neighborhoods and different communities across the country, to be a little more mobile. And then at the same time, we are in the process of looking for a location kind of centrally where we can continue with our own folks doing some version of what the Guard is doing now once they move out. And so public health has been looking pretty intensely for a location that would fit so we can build out our own testing, because testing is going to be critical as we move on, especially, as the economy opens up a little bit. And in addition to that, we've put some extra money in the budget to enhance the ability of public health to do contact tracing, because that's one of the metrics when we look at the data. When we look at the green, yellow, and red, when the things we have to meet to be in different phases, we have to have the ability to contact trace, and that's where the number of positives comes in, regardless of the percentage. So that when we get 20 positives or 30 positives overnight, the public health staff have to get on the phone and talk to those people, find out every person they've been in contact with, everywhere they've gone, and then track those people down to let them know they may have been exposed. So that's a capacity we're building also. Your other questions, I could absolutely, and Scott from my office is on the line, so I'll ask him to follow up on the businesses. We can check in with Aim by Local and absolutely get you a list of businesses in Cottage Grove that have benefited from it. Let me look into the job loss piece. I don't know how that breaks down, but we're happy to follow up and see what we can find out for you.
Thank you. And so just to confirm, I heard you right. You said the National Guard is staying until August?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just don't know the specific date. We can send you a follow-up email on that too, to let you know what that is.
Thank you. That would be really helpful.
Today. Yeah, you bet. My pleasure.
Okay.
I have a quick question, John. Executive Preview, I want to echo my colleagues and thank you for taking time to talk to us today. I have a question about face mask distribution. Has there been any consideration about having any distribution sites for face masks, as it's becoming more apparent that they're quite important in situations where you can't socially distance, and there may be people that are unable to access them privately?
You mean like a mass, like community-wide distribution?
Yeah.
I don't know if they've been looking into that at this point. Usually they, it's specific kind of events or groups, but that's not like the worst idea. I'd be happy to talk to public health about that. And Scott, I don't know if you can see who's asking which questions so we know who to follow up with. Especially if there's, for example, if there's interest, say in Cottage Grove, of having an area where people could get them, I could see, what the possibility of helping out with that would be. Be happy to follow up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do that.
Other questions for Joe on the
Yes,
board?
I can, John.
Thanks, Melissa. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Executive Parisi, for being here. And I wanted to thank you for giving an overview to the village board about what the county is working on to help our community and keep us safe. And I also appreciate that we're letting everyone know that we're basing what we're doing on public health recommendations based on science. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. It's appreciated.
All right. Any other questions for Joe?
I have one more. Sorry, this is Sarah again.
Sure, that's all right.
Do you have a sense of when the county government plans to resume in-person meetings?
Personally, I'm in no rush for that to happen. I think as long as we can meet virtually, I think that's the safest way to do things. Because circling back to beginning of the conversation, this is still as contagious and as dangerous as it ever was. I think that'll probably be on a case-by-case basis. I can't speak for the county board. They're their own unit, and they make their own decisions. But I certainly don't picture county government as a whole getting back to any sense of what used to be normal. Really, full blown until this thing is in the rearview mirror. It's just still too dangerous. And while we may have some small meetings and do social distancing, I'm certainly, personally, I would like to err on the side of caution and keeping people safe. So I don't picture it going full blown anytime in the near future. Supervisor Radcliffe, may have some other information, because again, I'm not exactly sure what the county board is looking at doing. So that would be, probably a question for them too.
All right. Again, Joe, thank you very much for spending some time with us. You can certainly feel free to stay on, but I certainly you have other things to attend to as well. But again, please feel free to stay on if you'd like. We were going to just continue plugging away at our normal meeting. And again, we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the time very much. And I, again, thank you all for everything that you're doing through all of this too.
Could I ask a quick question, John? This is Troy.
Yes, Troy, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Parisi, for taking the time today. Very informative. Appreciate everything. The efforts the county has done in all fronts in relation to COVID-19. Just curious how much federal funding we're getting to help support all the things we're doing.
Yeah, so the majority of the money from the initiatives I outlined was from, we're able to use federal CARES Act dollars. So those CARES, and there's a total of 94 million. So roughly where are we at now, 6, and it'll be at least 9 million with Second Harvest, the 10 million for the small business and the child care, the eviction prevention, a lot of our public health infrastructure work, our work with putting homeless families in hotels and then hiring staff. We have a partnership with Catholic Charities to hire staff to help with housing navigators, to help folks in the hotels find some more permanent housing. And then most of what we are doing with our dollars, COVID related, we're able to get reimbursed by those federal dollars. I think our biggest challenge will be, just like you guys are going to face, is kind of on the revenue side, particularly since county government's budget, about 60, I believe it's $8 million of our $500 million operating budget this year is slated to come from sales tax. And that's just not going to happen. So just like a lot of businesses, we'll be kind of looking on that side for some challenges, but we have been very fortunate that because we are a county of over 500,000, we were eligible for those CARES Act dollars. And now, as you know, the federal CARES Act dollars that are coming to local governments through the state are becoming available also.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Assuming there's no more questions, so we'll get moving on. Thanks, Joe, again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Item 7 is unfinished business. First there is discuss a draft of the village board's list of priorities. So, Matt.
Yes, thanks, John. There's a memo in the packet. We're waiting on a couple trustees' responses, and we have a good amount of time from this meeting until our next meeting on July 6th. So I will compile those as I get them and send out an updated memo with those so everyone can see everyone's submittals. And then the plan would be, or as we've done it in the past, each board member would then submit to me they would allocate 20 points towards these projects or initiatives and you could submit that. You in front of each category, you can see a letter, and that letter is just to give. That's just assigned to each category. So, for instance, you could submit all 20 points towards category A, and category A, you can see all the various things that are submitted there from board members. You could also, put 1 or 2 points on a whole bunch of different areas as well. So, however you'd like to divvy that up, and as long as I got those back from everyone by July 2nd, before the holiday there, we should be set for July 6th. But at this stage, just kind of wanted to get it out there for everyone to see what's been submitted so far, and if anyone has questions for any board members' submittals, I put the initials next to everyone so you could see who submitted what, and if you guys want to have a discussion, that's fine. If not, we can wait till later in the process as well. However you'd like to handle it. Any questions for me on the process, Paul? I know you're new with this.
I don't think so. Not at the moment. If I do, I'll reach out to you, Matt.
Okay.
And again, the priorities list is really to help us as before we know it, we'll be flowing into the budget cycle and a number of other things where we may have to allocate dollars to certain initiatives. Some may not, but others may require, a portion of our budget consideration. So that's really the goal around this. And it also will feed into staff goals as well. So those are the two big things, and certainly align the overall board and the direction we're heading. So that's kind of I think I said that before, but I want to just remind everybody that's why we're kind of doing this.
And then also, as you look through that memo, if you notice something that you submitted, and I've tried to lump some of them together if it's a similar type category or submittal from a board member. If you feel that something you submitted should be on its own and not part of, or vice versa, something that's on its own that you think should be combined with one of the categories, feel free to let me know that as well.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Yeah, quick question. When did
Sure.
you say that we would have kind of the final list?
It's kind of just as they get sent to me, I'll update the memo. So hopefully later this week. But as far as submitting like your points to things by July 2nd.
So we should wait for a final memo from you before we try to allocate our points?
Yeah, that would probably be best to see what everyone submitted. We just give people some more time.
I'm just curious from the others on the board, how, just so we don't lose track of it, hopefully we can get the comments to Matt soon so that the final memo can come out so we can get our prioritization done in time for the next meeting.
Understood. Deadline was July what?
That was for the voting. For this, we were hoping to have a general list in time for this meeting. So last week, Thursday, but that's okay, Paul.
It must be just me.
Nope, it's not just you.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
I didn't either. I didn't either, Paul. So you're not. I had a lot of.
All right, I do apologize if you
Too
mentioned
many personal things going on.
You mentioned the deadline last meeting. That's on me. I own that, and we'll make sure we get that to you, Matt.
There's no worries there. We have plenty of time. So.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, last year it took us a couple months, so hopefully we won't go down that road again. So I did have one question, if I could. Troy, you had to continue to improve engagement with village residents and stakeholders and encourage involvement and communication. I was wondering, in what ways were you envisioning that?
I'd really like to see more participation. We have nobody that participates in meetings for the most part. We have very little community engagement, and the only time we've had people come to meetings is when there's been what I'd call a controversial issue. I would say an example is I would have liked more community participation in the decision for the splash park and the Taj Mahal shelter that we've got going on. Obviously, no news is good news, I guess. They're welcoming that. They may not welcome it once they see their tax bill. I don't know. But we just seem to have very little citizen engagement in general. I'm hoping for more. We tried Paloco, and that didn't work. Again, very small percentage. Anytime we've had citizens show up at meetings, I feel like we've disregarded some of their opinions because it's been such a small percentage of our citizens showing up. So it's just, again, it'd be nice to hear what citizens have to say and what we're doing and giving us more direction than just the seven of us making these decisions.
Good way to do that, Troy, is going door to door, talking to people, knocking on doors, asking them what they're thinking, what they're feeling, because the more than likely they're not going to come to their meetings. It's just the way local government is. But if you can get them there, that'd be awesome.
Well, citizens come and we haven't listened to them, Jeff.
Perhaps another thing we do is just a simple thing like board member can invite a friend, and we bring a friend for each meeting. Maybe something that
we call it friend night.
Yeah, friends. We won't call it.
There you go, John.
Friend night. Yeah, something like that.
Friend.
All right.
Yeah.
We have a four-legged friend. Awesome.
Friends of the Trustees group.
Yeah. That's a therapy session, is what that is.
Okay, one other thing that I have. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate your explanation. And then last thing I wanted to know is just reading through these, I appreciated Heidi's number K about investing in a leaf truck, because that is something that I am going to amend my priorities as well to include that, because I think that is very important as well. So thank you, Heidi.
All right. More discussion certainly to come, and hopefully we can put our heads together and come up with solutions to some of these as well when we get our priorities finally sorted. So next item is discuss and consider allowing the hometown talent to use the Fireman's Park for the season. Sean, I assume that you certainly have more background than just the memo.
Yeah, thanks, John. As John mentioned, I did put in the memo that Home Talent as an organization, has come down with some guidelines for trying to keep their players and fans safe. Pretty much followed other baseball organization guidelines. So I feel like as long as they follow those things, they are doing everything that they can do. If anybody's paid attention to phase 2 of Forward Dane, they cannot play. There can only be practicing, but they cannot play other teams. So if you guys are okay with it and are comfortable with their document of what they're going to do to, for as far as sanitizing and things like that go, I would like to see a motion to basically, again, if you're okay with it, a motion to basically allow them to proceed once Dane County says that medium risk sports are allowed to happen, which is certainly not going to be in phase 2. We're not even sure, based on a phone call I was on with Dane County Health today, that it'll be allowed in phase 3. But if you're okay with someone making a motion doing that, I think that would kind of put it back on me to just allow them to use the park for games.
And Sean, just a
Sarah,
quick,
I'll move. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I just had a quick clarification on when you say they can't play games, that's in reference to it being defined contact. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. The baseball, softball are considered a medium risk. So I think there's a lot of argument going on within the county on that. But yeah, as of the way that's correct, Paul. Absolutely.
Okay.
I was just going to move that we approve the use of the firemen's. Oh shoot! Now I always lose my words. The Home Talent League to use Fireman's Park for the season as soon as the Dane County forward Dane allows.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion second. Any further discussion?
Just one other thing to note quickly, because I know JJ's got me on a timer here, but we are not going to be allowing any other use of that facility. So outside organizations, based on our last meeting, just to refresh your memory, we're not going to be allowing, there's all kinds of other people that are reaching out wanting to use our space, and we are not allowing that to happen. So we will allow Home Talent to practice there if that's what they choose.
Sean, are we doing anything? So if 5 folks show up at that park and start throwing the ball around, what's our steps there? I mean, we're allowing hometown talent to have 5 folks or more throw the ball around at a safe distance. What if some others show up and start throwing the ball around?
Because that facility is typically locked,
Yep.
most other folks can't get into it. But the outside gathering policy is 100 now, so we wouldn't. The rest of our fields are open for people to use as they want. So we're encouraging, obviously, and we're putting things out about social distancing and trying to remain within families and things like that. But we're not, to the best of my knowledge, and this would be a PD question, they are not going to go out and seek those folks out and ask them to disperse.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. I forgot that we have that locked in that fashion. So any further discussion from the board for the motion on the floor?
Yeah, does the motion cover that they can practice but not play games? Is that what it was, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think
Are we letting them practice now?
we would as of tomorrow.
I think you're looking for clarity in that motion, correct, Sean, that it's just very specific to practice and no games.
Yeah, I think that, correct. I think that if the language is based on county regulations and in the forward Dane plan, that we follow those, I think that covers everything that we're trying to do.
And so the forward Dane plan does delineate practice versus games.
Correct.
Okay.
So then the motion would be okay with it being as per the forward Dane plan. The
I'm good
motion's
with
okay that way, right?
Okay. So thank you for the clarification on the motion. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Item C then is discuss and consider resolution 2020-06 regarding Act 185, postponing interest and penalty for real estate tax payments until October 1st, 2020. Deb, I think you have some information in the packet and probably have a good background on this one as well.
Sure. So yes, there's a memo in your packet, kind of outlining the highlights of Act 185 and their effects on the real estate personal personal and real estate property taxes. Basically, what it's stating in that anybody who is not delinquent after April 1st can postpone their payments until October 1st without incurring additional interest and penalties. So if you pay by installment, for instance, on your real estate taxes, and you paid your first installment in by the end of January, you're current, and then you can, if you need to, extend your July 31st payment to September 31st and not incur additional interest and penalties. This also affects the settlement, which we normally get settled in full by the county by August 15th, and that pushes that out to October 15th. However, given the cash flow situation that the village is in, I don't feel as though this is will be a big hindrance on the village. Therefore, that's why I kind of recommend that we pass this. One thing to note is that Dane County has this act, but every individual municipality has to pass their own resolution in order to partake in it. So, are there any questions, or can I clarify anything?
Make a motion.
Sorry, just a quick question. The letter from the county, Deb, that has the list of municipalities, will they just update that as municipalities approve?
Correct, on their website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 2020-06, Act 185, postponing interest and penalty for real estate tax payments until October 1st, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I think Melissa got the second on that one.
Can I ask a question of clarity, please?
Yes, Troy, please.
Deb, so if someone can't pay by October 1st, that interest reverts back to what date then?
I would say it goes back to October 1st. As long as they're not delinquent in the first place, if they can't pay on October 1st, then the interest and penalties would start on October 1st. I'm not 100% clear on that, but that's the way I'm reading it. Maybe Rick, if you have...
Yeah, I could jump in. That's correct. So the way that the resolution is drafted, after October 1st, that's when interest and penalties would start to kick in. So just because they're late until October 1st, it's not going to revert back to whatever the interest would be prior then. It doesn't start to accrue until after October 1st.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that there's an understanding of what would happen if someone didn't pay by October 1st. So, okay. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for the questions and the clarity. Any other further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right. Then we just have unfinished business. Item D is an update on the website redesign project. So, Lisa, I think you're spearheading this one.
Yep. So there's a memo in your packet that kind of explains where we were and where we're headed. We had a little bit of delay on pushing forward with the website redesign due to COVID. We are back on track. We met, trying to think when we had our initial kickoff, a couple weeks ago maybe, or a week ago. The team, the village staff team that we have put together, met today to go over a little bit of our homework that was assigned to us that was due July 3rd. Happy to report that has all been uploaded, so we are ahead of the game. So that was good news. We have a meeting later this week with our project manager to get our next steps of where we're at, and I think that's going to be going into more of the design of where we are. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but the memo pretty much gives you where we're at right now.
Lisa, based on the feedback from the vendor, where do we look at as far as assuming that we can get our act and everything done on our end? When do we anticipate the new site and the updates will be implemented?
When we first started, we were looking at starting in February, and at that time, we were looking at towards the end of the year of having this completed. Then obviously we were pushed back, so that made me a little nervous if that was going to happen still by the timeline that we had discussed prior. And with talking with our project manager last week, we are still slated to finish by the end of the year. The way it works is as fast as we move, they move with us. So that's why I was happy today that I was able to get our first homework assignment deliverables to them, because then that kind of helped us with our time frame. You know, it may not be that way with every step of it. I'm not sure, because I came in when we got the new website right at the tail end of it, so I wasn't in the beginning processes. So I'm not sure how each step's going to go and how much time. But right now, it looks like we probably will be looking at this by the end of the year.
Okay. I just wanted to check. I know I saw it in the memo, but I want to see the latest because you did meet with them today. Other questions for Lisa?
I did. Is the redesign going to have like the events and meetings easily accessible on the front page, maybe more so than currently?
Yeah, so that, as you can see, that was one of our main goals that we identified right out of the gate. Is number one, we've gotten feedback that our website's not as user friendly as what we think it is. But it's, you know, I work in it all the time, so to me, you know, it is. But if you're not used to it, it does seem like there's a lot of clicks to get to places. Looking at some of the newer designs that they've put out recently, there are a lot more quick link buttons, I will call them, little icons, and we can set that up so we get monthly reports on, you know, people visiting our website, where they're going, what were the search engines, what were the top words that they searched. And so we've taken into account a lot of that. So yes, that is one of our main goals, is to make it much more user-friendly and having the things that are accessible. And that was one we identified today, as well as our calendar, that we'd like it to be more visible and upfront.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Lisa? Thank you for all your hard work, Lisa, and we're looking forward to seeing the end product. All right, then we will move on to new business, item 8. First is item 8A, discuss and consider resolution 20-07, Cottage Grove Village Board and the Village Police Department joint resolution to condemn and confront racism. There is a memo in the packet that Heidi did. Heidi's kind of spearheaded this and then worked with Chief as well as staff. So Heidi, please feel free to share with us your memo and the background.
Sure. So as I watched events around the country and world recently, and then there were some incidents of racist language right here in Cottage Grove, I felt that it is our responsibility as leaders in our community to help all people feel welcomed in Cottage Grove. So I started writing a resolution and gathered input. So I'm asking that all of us recommit to our vision for Cottage Grove with a statement kind of showing our values as a community, that racism isn't tolerated here, and we want all people to feel welcomed in Cottage Grove.
Okay, thanks, Heidi. Any questions, comments on the resolution or? We have, this is discussed and considered. Do we have a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2020-07 regarding Cottage Grove Village Board and Cottage Grove Police Department joint resolution to condemn and confront racism.
All right. Is there
I'll
a second? Okay.
That was Sarah. Sarah second.
Yep. First from Melissa, second from Sarah. Any further? Go ahead.
I saw that cheap labor was unmuted for a moment. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I just obviously share everybody's concerns about what's going on right now, and I think it's important that elected officials and police departments are together on this and express their concerns with what happened up in Minneapolis and what may be going on in the community here to tell people, hey, it's not okay, we don't support it, and here's how we feel about it. So I have no problems at all with this resolution. I think it's a good step forward, and we look forward to trying to move on from this and be better for it.
All right. Thanks, Chief. Any other discussion? We have a motion and second on the resolution.
This is Sarah. I do have a quick comment. I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate the work that Heidi did, along with Chief Labor, and getting all of the feedback that you sought. So I appreciate that, and I also really appreciate the action items at the end. So it's not just declaring that we're against racism, but also list action items that we're committed to taking as a village. And so I really want to appreciate you, Heidi, and the rest of you that provided insight and comments. And I look forward to being able to implement those action items as listed.
Yeah, I was going to point that out too. I think that was it's a good way to not only just make a statement saying this is what we stand for, but these are the things that we're going to shoot for and that we're going to strive for. So thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Chief Labor.
Great work. Great work.
All right. Any other comments or? All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks again, everyone. Then we move on to item B then, is discuss and consider the premise change for Dundren's Distilling. So I don't know. We can see that anybody's on. Aaron, you want to start us off perhaps?
I think Abby is on the line, John, if you want.
Oh, I see her, yeah.
Hey guys.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say unmute Abby, and please feel free to share with us what you guys are got going on over at Dundren's.
Sure. So this is just kind of a follow-up of what was already approved as part of our conditional use in creating the cocktail garden. We are now under construction. We spent a while making hand sanitizer. I don't know if anybody has followed along in that whole saga, but so we are, we're now kind of doing some of the build out outside and are looking forward to getting open in the new normal, whatever that might be. But yeah, so as a follow-up to that, we wanted to modify our premises to include those areas for both our beer permit and then as well the sound permit for live music, which was part of our conditional use requirements. So those are kind of the two line items up.
All right, thanks, Abby. Any questions for Abby, or we'll get comments from the staff as well?
I had a question, if I can go now. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Abby, is there not going to be a fence around the whole C area now?
Hang on, let me pull back up. This has been a whirlwind. That's the cocktail garden, right? I'm just trying to remember.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is going to be a fence, but there's going to be a gate there as well, and so I want to allow people to like walk out the front and get into that gate, and so that's kind of encompassing that. With all of this coronavirus business and everything, we've also, to try and improve our safety, on occasion have done some things, you know, with the doors open, and because right now our tasting room is basically a warehouse for hand sanitizer. We just wanted to include a little bit more of that parking lot to as well facilitate some more like social distance sales opportunities, and just ultimately make sure that we're fully compliant with what's going on in the village. And so really it will be a fenced area, but the additional areas were to kind of facilitate current social distancing, additional sales means, as well as ultimately another thing that I'm looking forward to someday, you know, gathering with friends and members of our community. You know, we had talked about with Parks and Rec about doing like chili cook-offs and things like that, where we utilize the parking lot regularly, and community game things. And so, you know, it's kind of the two parts of, in the current, we want some flexibility to be able to get open maybe more regularly and put a sales tent in the parking lot or something for sales, considering we're warehousing a bunch of hand sanitizer, as well as, you know, allow people to walk from our front door into the cocktail garden, like if they go up to the bar and get a drink and then walk into that area, as well as special events that we've already discussed lots of different things with the Parks and Rec department. So it's kind of multi-part there, but it will be fenced.
The whole area, or just C?
Just C.
Eventually.
Yeah, we'll fence that. We're actually working on that fence right now.
Okay. So is what we're looking at for the premise change is approving, Aaron is approving like the whole rectangle with A, B, C, D, and E as an area where people can drink alcohol, I guess. Is that what I'm looking at?
Aaron, you're on mute.
I believe so. I don't really handle the liquor license part of this too much, but
sorry.
D was, as Abby was saying, I think in the short term, for people order ahead and they carry it out to your car, that kind of thing. And I think she mentioned, you know, maybe special events in the future. But I think C is the main cocktail garden.
Right. Okay.
Lisa?
Okay. Thank you.
So I just wanted to kind of backtrack there. Is part of this is their premise needs to be spelled out on their alcohol license, and so it didn't clearly have these areas prior to this change. And so when you approved the alcohol license just a few weeks ago, it had their old premise, and in order to change that, that takes a board action. So that's why this is on here, because they've requested, number one, the change, and then it becomes an action of the board. So if it's approved, then we will amend that license and retype the premise with the description. And that becomes important if they were ever visited by a state agent. That's the first thing they're going to look at, is they're going to come in and pull that license and see where alcohol is allowed and where it is not allowed.
And we also then this is Abby again, we also are coordinating accordingly with the state for the liquor piece of it, which is actually entirely different. So this is just for the beer part.
And Lisa, is that, would that be looked at next year then when it came up for renewal?
Right, so it would be looked at, you look at the premises on the applications every year, and part of that goes hand in hand with the application, and then Chief Labor also does a walkthrough for the compliance part of it. So that's part of the background check, part where staff is doing their end before it gets to you. So yes, that premise could actually change annually. So you could get that at that time. Most of the time it doesn't change, and it's with different circumstances that it changes, and then it comes back to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Since Lisa brought up Chief, have you had a chance to look at this? Do you have any concerns from your vantage point?
No, not at all. I think it'll be a nice project and no concerns from our vantage point.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Comments?
This is Heidi. The sound amplification permit then is on the next page, or are we considering all of this as one package or two separate? Oh, I see. Sound. It's the next agenda item.
Yes.
If you can disregard my question here.
That's all right. I totally get it. It's nice you want to package things. That's good. But we're going to handle.
Yeah, sorry. That was probably my fault because there's kind of one explanation for both of them, but they are two different items. Yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the premise change for Dunrid's Distillery.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Yep, I think Paul took the second there. Any further discussion then? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Now we can follow that up with item C, which is discuss and consider sound application permit for Dundren's Distillery. I think we covered the background there, I believe.
I had a question. Again.
That's
Thank you. Abby, is the position of the stage changed?
Nope, it's in the exact same position as what we discussed when we brought forth the conditional use. So
Okay.
all parameters are the same.
Great, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the sound.
Wait, sorry.
But I want
What
to
is
just make
this?
the motion.
Okay.
We can discuss after the
Second.
motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now you can go if you seconded.
My question is what's different, or why do we need to look at this again? What's changed?
Nothing changed. So, I mean, there was just part of the requirement of the conditional use to fill this out, so I filled it out. So beyond that, I don't know, that's a you guys thing from there, but nothing changed.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I didn't miss something.
I think they had dates on there now, Sarah. That was one of the questions I think we had before, and they've kind of figured out what the schedule is, I believe.
I was wondering, Abby, will you have your schedule posted anywhere? Should people follow your Facebook page to find out if there's an event, or will you have a schedule posted anywhere?
We, at this point, haven't booked anything for the summer because we're still just doing the construction. But yeah, we'll be posting on social media, which can easily be shared and is regularly shared throughout the community for wider awareness as well. For those that want to attend or awareness for other reasons, what have you. So that will be posted. We also, I plan that we will be booked. I mean, once we get going, we'll have more regular schedule of events, let's say, even if let's say it's one every 2 weeks or something, it will establish some sort of regular frequency. And we do have an events calendar, although it is empty. We have an events calendar on our website as well. So we'll be posting all over the place so anybody can find out whatever they need to know.
Thank you.
So as of right now, Abby, there are no dates, right? I didn't see any dates on the sound permit. It's the same
Correct.
as before,
What
right?
we decided was out of the conditional use was that the board decided we were allowed to do one permit to define for the whole summer. And then we limited the criteria of basically the sound limits depending on the day of the week versus the weekend. And so there's no set dates right now, but the permit was basically supposed to be an annual thing. And then we will reapply for next year, and continue in that regard.
I think the thought was something like a Music in the Grove type of thing, that there was a regular cadence and the calendar's posted, I believe. But someone else can correct me if I'm wrong.
But that's not part of the application is the same as what it was before, just to confirm.
That's a question for Lisa, maybe?
Yeah, they didn't put in a permit before. It was just discussed in their conditional use.
Conditional use permit just kind of sets the parameters within which they would operate, but they still have to come back for the liquor license and the sound license.
All right, any other further discussion? Otherwise, do we have a motion?
Oh, I made that. I made the motion.
That's right. You made the motion, and Sarah jumped in and wanted discussion. All right, I'm sorry. So if there's no further discussion, all those approved?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. My brain's already mush, and we're still a long way from finishing this meeting. All right, then item D then is discuss and consider a premise change for BB Jacks. There was a sketch in the packet as well for them, and this is obviously to address social distancing and such. So, Aaron, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this a little bit, or
I guess the one question I had looking at is how is this going to work with the hotel construction traffic, but they're accessing the site from the east and not through this area. So it sounds like it won't be an issue, and hopefully this is just temporary.
I don't know if anybody's on from BB Jacks who wants to jump in.
I don't think, John, I've seen anybody from BB Jacks on.
Okay. And I think it's, I believe it's only temporary, and it's to, it has to be only temporary because that's what it is proposed here, for, again, trying to space their clientele out a bit further and keep them safe. And hopefully enjoy some beautiful summer weather.
Temporary until when? I guess I don't see that listed any dates. Maybe I'm missing it.
I think the board can set that.
When is the hotel construction supposed to start? Sorry. When is the hotel construction supposed to start? That's my question.
I don't know that they have an exact date yet. I think they're wrapping up some of the stormwater drawings with MSA and working on getting the building permit.
I mean, evening dining probably wouldn't overlap with construction time, I would guess.
Well, and I guess they couldn't, if we were to approve this and set dates this year, they wouldn't be doing outdoor dining in winter anyway. So they could always come back next summer or spring if the hotel wasn't open yet. But otherwise, they'd be right in the middle of a parking lot where cars could be driving, so that wouldn't necessarily work out.
Sarah, did you have a comment? Or
I just wanted to understand the reason it has to come to the board at the premises change is because of the alcohol serving?
Correct.
I just wanted to understand. Okay.
Yep, that's a board action.
Okay. So what we're really approving is basically expanding the premises on which they can serve alcohol?
Correct.
Okay.
any other?
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the expansion of the premise for BB Jacks. As indicated.
Okay. Have you seconded? Any further discussion?
I guess what date are we putting on it to until when? October 1st, September 1st?
Sarah, you want to put a date on it, or on your motion?
Connecting.
No.
I just think we need an end date that they can't use this and come back and say, well, you approved it last year, so we're going to do it again this year.
I can see Sarah looking to connect to audio. So
yeah, she's
looking to promotion.
We've all been there.
I agree, Troy. I would also like a date on it, if possible.
I mean, sometimes we have nice 70-degree days in October, so I wouldn't want to make it too restrictive, but...
And are they going to put a fence around the area then, too? So it may be temporary. If you've got alcohol, you just don't want underage folks, strolling in and strolling out, I wouldn't think.
Is there a restriction with outdoor dining and the liquor license that you need to have a fence? I mean, I've seen that in other places, but I don't...
I think that's the discretion of the board.
All right. Sarah, are you back on?
Yeah, sorry, I meant to hit mute and I hit leave, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never happened to any of us, the others, though.
So the discussion really is on potentially a date, an end date for this. This is obviously reviewed annually, but we're talking about end date for this temporary spot. And then the other, I think, concern or discussion item is whether or not this should be somehow fenced off, that type of thing. And again, it's, as Lisa said, it's up to the board's discretion whether we feel like those items need to be in the motion or not.
I guess when I made the motion, I'm sorry if you had this discussion while I was trying to get back on, I was thinking it would be for this calendar year. So I didn't think I needed to put a temporary date on because they would have to apply for it again next year, right, if they wanted it?
Well, the calendar year goes from end of June to all the way, or I'm sorry, July 1st all the way through the end of June, all right, Lisa?
Oh, it's the fiscal year?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, that's...
Okay. Well,
and then we have
I don't have a reason why we wouldn't want it, why we would want to set an end date that would be sooner than that.
Because the hotel's going to be there.
Okay.
Because the hotel's going to connect the parking lots, so they're going to be right in the middle of a parking lot then that is drive-throughable. So that would be my concern. But if you don't want to put a different time limit on it than the fiscal year, it's your motion, so that's okay. I just want to verify what you're stating.
Do we have an idea when the hotel's opening? wouldn't it make sense to have that one advance the close time of the, expanded space for BB Jacks to have that shut down, a set time before the hotel is opening? Do we know when it's opening?
Sometime next year. I don't, until they put a shovel in the ground, Paul, I don't think anyone will know what their timeline is. They originally talked about, I think, August time frame or something of that sort, but that's a lot of ifs because of just trying to find skilled labor, et cetera. I guess
Plan Commission, one of them gave us 12 to 14 months of construction, so I assume it would be at least a year from now.
Yeah. I mean, my preference for the board would just be to set a date in the fall, whatever it is, and then if they need to come back in spring, summer, then we evaluate it again, because then we'll know more about what that parking lot looks like. To Melissa's point, we'll also have an idea of how that first few, several months went from this year. That's just my thought. And
so how about? I just think.
Go ahead.
I just think we need an end date. Is all I'm saying. I think there needs to be an end date on it, and I also believe there should be some sort of a fence around it. Because I'm trying to think of any place else that has outdoor dining with alcohol that doesn't have a fence around it, and I don't think we have any.
I think you're right.
Would a date of November 1st sound okay? Or would you want it to be sooner? I'm trying to think of how long people go outside. No, but you're okay with November 1st?
And again, like I think Melissa said, it's not like people are going to be out there in their snowmobile suits dining. I think the weather is going to be the determining factor. It's just I want to make sure we have an end date so that they can't try to say it was for longer than it was. And that kind of thing. That's all.
Okay, so how about I'll amend my motion to be effective until November 1st of this year, 2020, and that I would agree with including a fence, a portable or a temporary one, right? It doesn't need to be a permanent.
I don't think they have a fence out there right now. It's just open right to the field next to them. So they'd have to change their existing area that's outside dining also.
I guess I'd want to see at least something in that area just because it's parking lot. Cones or something that's so that someone doesn't drive into that area thinking that it's still a parking few parking stalls.
Yeah. So if we amended the motion.
Temporary barricade or something?
What was it, Chief?
Temporary barricade would be fine.
Yeah, just move a temporary barricade when it's open.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Okay, so how about I amend the motion to approve BB Jack's request for the premise change through November 1st of 2020 with a condition that they have some sort of barrier around the premises of the outside area.
I second that.
Heidi had the second before, but that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. We keep going, then talking and going. That's
yeah, I know.
I'll re-second since it's amended.
And Jeff, you can third that. All right.
John.
Yeah.
John.
Yes.
Chief. I think Sarah said around the perimeter. Are we just talking about a barricade in the parking lot to give a visual to people not to drive into these people sitting at the tables, or are we asking for a perimeter around their whole area, including the existing area?
Oh, good point, Chief. Just the parking lot.
Okay.
Or just the dining area, the outside dining area. Or just the outside dining area in the parking lot.
Well, I think that encompasses more than just a barricade to keep people from parking there. You still have the highway end side, which people could walk in and out freely, and the other side, which has the grass. That's why I'm thinking some sort of a temporary fence, barricades, whatever, but it should be, really three-sided, the only entry in and out of the building.
Troy, the issue that with Chief just brought up is it's currently open right now. I think it's probably open because there's eventually a plan. They're planning to come back to Plan Commission and Board with something a bit more substantial for that area as the hotel takes shape. So it's open right now.
So their outside eating area allows alcohol, and there's no sort of fence or anything around that area.
No, right now their outside dining is open with no barriers around the perimeter of it.
So was that space defined in their alcohol permit?
It was listed as their outdoor patio. So it wasn't very descriptive, but that's what it has on it currently.
So I think that's an item we need to take up when they come back with further design of that area is something that is a barrier or closure or whatever to that particular area once it's further developed.
And we'll review all of the permits then at the same time next year, so we could apply this equally across all businesses serving alcohol outside then next renewal season? Or is it, I don't know how is that something that we want to implement with all businesses serving alcohol outdoors?
I think that's an important note, Heidi. I'm not so sure Oakstone has any barriers around their northeast corner of their patio. I was just there the other day, and you can just walk straight south out into the field. In fact, I had some deers come right up to me while I was eating.
Yeah, they don't have it either.
I think we're looking at this at Plan Commission. I thought I saw something with the outdoor dining and conditional use permits too. But anyway.
I think we're getting off topic too. So the consideration here is whether or not we allow them to take a few stalls up for expansion of the outdoor area. And then subsequent to that, I think there's a broader discussion going forward about enclosures and maybe even a change to our ordinance or whatever that the board sounds like you guys want to have at some point.
If I can ask John, the picture shows 6 stalls in their drawing, not 3. I just want to make sure I understand that. It shows the 3 closest to the building, and that goes all the way across where people could park directly across from those other 3 stalls.
Aaron, do you know any more than that?
Yeah, I think Troy's right. That's what it shows on the drawing is 6 stalls.
6 stalls. I think 3 would be kind of awkward. Is you'd have people turn.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't give them a whole lot of space.
No.
3 doesn't. We're 6, and then that place in the middle that the car would normally drive, to me makes more sense. I just want to make sure that again we're covering it, and that they've got a total of 6 stalls and the space in between them. So
That's what they have on their memo is the 6 southernmost parking spots in the back lots as pictured, 3 closest to the building and 3 along the west retaining wall.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second with the date on it, as well as I think a barrier so that people don't drive into this area. Any further discussion?
And the barrier is just in the parking lot, not the entire premise, to Chief's point.
And Heidi, you're good with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion then? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. We have homework from that one too. Going forward. Item E then is discuss the possible action related to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission's recommendation to the DNR regarding the Village Urban Service Plan amendment in TID number 10. There is information in here, our packets, and I guess I'll turn this over to Aaron, who wrote the memo.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a background, and then I think Larry's going to come in with some of our specific concerns. But generally speaking, you recall that we are pursuing an urban service area amendment primarily for about 150 acres in TID 10, and also a small remnant in West Lawn. We've been going through that process. They had their public hearing at CARPC in May. They don't take action at that meeting. They do that at the following meeting, so that was last week. At the June meeting, they did approve our request with a series of conditions that their staff drafted up. We were able to provide some input and had some of those conditions kind of negotiated and altered. But there was one in particular, condition H in the list, and the CARPC staff report is in your packet to see the whole list. But H was one we had some both philosophical and practical issues with. And then at the meeting, in the motion, they switched one of the recommendations and made it a condition. And that's also outlined in the report. So Larry, I don't know if you want to get into the legalese of why we object to condition H.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
You're really light, faint.
I'll try to speak up here. So there's a couple of things going on here that are troubling, and thanks to Heidi for the great job she did on the commission during meetings. It's a very, very tough crowd, and just so everyone understands the sacrifice that she's making, you have some particular opinions on that commission of people who are very, very strong opinionated about the relationships between towns and municipalities, and it makes for a pretty rough environment, I think, to do something productively, and that's unfortunate. But in this case, the staff, the CARPC staff, proposed this provision, this letter H that Aaron mentioned, and it's a provision that was taken from the City of Madison ordinances. And the City of Madison decided to take a very strong stance on requiring any developer to take proactive steps to acquire and solidify the rights to transport water, or to allow water to flow off their property onto the property of another. The provision starts out by saying, it's a requirement that the developer must acquire the right, which is the first problem, because the right already exists. Under Wisconsin law, you have the right to let water run downhill, as long as you don't change the volume and intensity of that flow, in which case there's another test that applies. But there's a whole history of law that relates to this particular question. And here we're in a situation where now, basically, for development to occur, the neighboring property owner, which, by the way, is the property owner that sold the land here to Grey Wolf for this development, is now in a position to almost have a veto authority over some of this development under this provision. Because if that neighbor decides not to allow to basically sell an easement to transport stormwater across their property, then this provision H requires a much higher stormwater protection standard to be met that might not be cost effective. So it's really a very strong policy decision the city of Madison has made. And I spoke up in the meeting that I said it was inappropriate for them to do that to the village of Cottage Grove. If the village of Cottage Grove wants to have as restrictive a requirement, that should be a policy decision for the people on this meeting. So it's overall that provision is pretty problematic. And then at the last minute, we had another provision folded in that was supposed to be a recommendation, but became a condition, as Aaron said, really vaguely worded, but basically, if read in its least favorable light to the village, requiring the village to have a joint stormwater management plan with the town of Sun Prairie prior to any development of this property, both of which are well beyond, in my opinion, the scope of the authority of CARPC. And so that's why we thought it was important to get this on your radar quickly after that meeting last week, because the DNR only has 30 days to review this recommendation made by CARPC, and I think it would be important for all of you to discuss whether or not you want to see a letter sent to the DNR opposing those two provisions.
So Larry, our option basically is to send a letter to the DNR because the DNR has the final say in how we move forward with this. Do we have any other options?
There might be other options, but that would be the only one I would consider at this point. In effect, even though a lot of this terminology in this staff report pertains to the village, really in effect what it's really affecting is the developer and the cost of development, and maybe because of a lack of understanding of the law and what is allowed and what isn't in creating this veto authority. I can't say that I have never looked into whether or not it would be worthwhile to petition, let's say, CARPC for a change in their decision. But as Heidi could tell you as a member of that commission and others who have viewed this commission do its work, I think you'd be better off to close your eyes and walk until you hit a wall.
And to give a little additional context there, Heidi was the only vote, or the only commissioner supportive of the village in this, and that was after Larry explaining why we object, and the remaining commissioners, still voted the way they did. So.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, I mean, you have people on these meetings, the CARPC meetings, talking about things like, I don't care what our role is, we have to do X, Y, and Z to make a statement, and things like that. So it's hard to really comprehend the degree to which these things go off track unless you actually listen in on one.
I think that it really highlights a challenging relationship between towns and villages and different authorities that each of those governmental units has. And we're going to talk about this later under the Plan Commission, but the town of Sun Prairie does want to talk about a boundary agreement and how we deal with water between, at our borders, can be part of that conversation. So, I can save the plug for talking with them to, avoid some of this in the future as TID 10 expands. Just, I think it would be good to have an open dialogue with them, however it may turn.
had one additional. I think there's one thing you might want to know that we can share here. We had some dialogue with the village of McFarland, which was lambasted a bit in our most recent meeting last week, and they, I mean, I think there are going to be a lot of communities that are going to be pushing back against particularly this provision H, because it really is usurping the power of this board and allowing the city of Madison to speak for the village of Cottage Grove, and even if that were the only problem, it'd be problem enough. But here you've got something that's really unworkable and tips the scales in a way that isn't very balanced. So again, if there's anything you want to do about it, it would be now. And what you can do is express to the Department of Natural Resources that these are unacceptable provisions and make sure they're on record as knowing that.
I'm in favor of you writing a letter to the DNR, or the village writing a letter to the DNR.
So, Melissa, is that a motion?
Yes, that can be my motion. I move that that we allow our attorneys to write a letter to the DNR regarding the village's urban service area amendment into 10 in relation to CARPC's recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
I just want to thank Heidi for being willing to sit on that board. Thank you, Heidi. It sounds like a real fun time.
Come join us anytime.
Thanks, Heidi.
Yes. And I think they're seeking other members too. Yes, I wonder why.
Do you think they'd let two Village of Cottage Grove people be on there?
Can the head of your public works be part of it? Just trying to see if JT's awake.
He is. He's smiling. All right, we have a motion and second then for the attorney to provide feedback to DNR regarding our urban service request. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right. Then we move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. We got a few of these stacked up here tonight. The first one is Public Works and Properties Committee, and there is a motion to consider there, but I'll run through at least my notes, and then I'll let JJ jump in wherever he sees fit. So we'll walk through the bike path update, and that's just going to be a continual item for us. There's a lot of work that is being done by MSA to kind of get ready for grant application, and so that's going to continue. And then certainly, there'll be consideration along budget time whether, how we're going to go forward with, this. There's some options certainly, and that fed into the Clark Street reconstruction project, which has been on our plans for a while, but again, there's some budget option considerations there as well. We also discussed, and that's the action item here, discuss a task order contract for MSA for work related to Bus Road and County BB project. And this involves certainly the school, but the Shady Grove development and that work there. And then we, like a lot of meetings right now, we discussed the format of the next meeting. We had JJ's report, Kevin had an engineering report. And Kevin did note that they did get the soil report back for the lots in the commercial park. And so we do have a better idea of what's going on there. But the recommendation, I think, and Kevin is probably still on, is for us just to hold tight on that, because it really depends on what development would go there. So if somebody needs to, dig down deep, depending on what kind of structure they have versus They're just going to put a pad on there, and that would determine kind of their next steps. But what we have now is at least a good idea for those lots from a development perspective. So, any developer can go in eyes wide open. And then approving the minutes from prior meeting. Next meeting is July 7th, and we will be holding it via Zoom. JJ, anything I missed, or Kevin?
No, I think you nailed it all. And I can let Kevin discuss the task order.
Yes, and that's for consideration. So, Kevin, please.
Yeah, so thanks, John. The one thing I will mention real quick is I think we are going to, I talked with Matt, we're going to put together a task order for the lots in the business park with the soils that we did. The one item that we can address yet is to work with JJ and do some soil pit tests out there and do some infiltration analysis. That way, if we get those approved by the DNR ahead of time, you can basically go to the, when a developer comes in, they can say, here's what's your infiltration rate's got to be, or if you're already exempt from it and everything else, and kind of avoid some of this hassle that's happening with the hotel site and everything right now. So that'll probably come to Public Works next month as well. I'm working with Eric Thompson on that. So the task order that's in front of you, for those, I guess, newer to the board, obviously, means that I'm newer to the village there and everything. This project has been worked on since, I think, starting in 2018. So this is kind of more of a paper trail and kind of how I like to do some of these things. But we've been working on this. The village board has already seen some concept maps of basically expanding County Highway BB, Cottage Grove Road, basically from Damascus and continuing it west through Bus Road. The one thing this will include as well is it also includes the temporary conditions for the school site that was approved just recently at the through the developers agreement. So it's not completing Bus Road to a full 4-lane urban that was approved by the village board. This would just be for the temporary conditions right now, which includes some turn lanes and everything for the school. But it does include the signal down at Bus, and then working kind of like John said with Shady Grove and working on the Bus Road intersection and extending that. So like I said, this is stuff that we've already started working on since when I started here with the village. There was really never a formal task order. So I kind of like it to be in front of the board just to kind of show what dollars could be spent and everything through the process. And obviously there's other, like John mentioned, working with the school district and developers, there's cost shares regarding with the county and everything on this as well. So, like I said, the project itself has been going on. We're already into it, and I'm working with the school district on getting some of the survey information they had as well, so that we didn't have to redo anything that was already done. So, but that's basically, I guess, if you got anything to add, JJ, I think that kind of covers the majority of it and everything here. So. I think the plan is to put this out for bid for next year so that the road work is done, obviously, for when the school starts up.
JJ, anything to add?
Nope, I think Kevin covered it all.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I was wondering, will it be a condition or a requirement in the bid to complete by school opening date in 2021?
Yeah, we'll have to work with the school on that to set the dates to see. I don't know exactly, when are they planning to start first of next year, basically a year from September or whatever. I didn't know exactly. Yes, we'll put dates in there that at least if the stuff on Bus Road has to be done, the idea is to get it out so they can start early in the spring. And we're not doing any utility work really, besides possibly putting maybe a casing pipe in or something so that we can extend something in the future. But it's basically just going to be a roadway and then the traffic signal works, so that it should be fine.
I had one other thing. The bike path comes up Cottage Grove Road then and kind of crosses to go in front of GDS. Is it going to continue on Cottage Grove Road on either side, or?
So I'm not sure where GDS is offhand, so that
the middle school.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yes, the plan is that it's going to go along the north side, and then it is going to be on the east side of Bus Road up to the school. So there will be a path, and the idea is to try to put that in the location so that we don't have to rip it out as far as when you go from this temporary condition along Bus Road to the future condition of it being more of an urban 4-lane type of deal. So we're planning on putting that back near the right of way, and that'll be on the east side of Bus Road.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, real quick, you said no utilities impacted, but isn't there a power line out there that goes for a short distance, I think, to the dental clinic?
Yep, sorry about that. I guess when I meant utilities, I was thinking more water sewer.
Okay.
That we're installing water and sewer. But yes, there is some overhead that we are waiting for some cost estimates yet from them on burying the stuff along Bus Road and along Cottage Rover Road there too.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
I would just note that if we do dates that we don't have the cutoff be August 31st, it would be nice for it to be like August 15th or August 20th, because being a new school, they're going to want to get in to look at it, to let people see it beforehand. And also as a parent, knowing that usually we go to the schools at least the week before to do like back to school or something like that. So and August 31st would be really late. So I'm just putting that out there. Thanks.
Nope, that's fine. We can do, so we always do a substantial completion and a final completion. So substantial completion could be, say, a month early so that the road is able to be traveled, and final completion would be more the restoration type of work. So if they had to do some seating yet, and obviously there'll be punch list items and things like that. So, yep, we can take that under consideration.
All right, any other questions for Kevin?
Kevin, if I can ask, how confident are you on the overall cost of this project based on some history here and being off significantly in the past?
Nope. No, that's a very fair question, and I feel confident with it. I went over it with our traffic folks, the ones that just did the intersection at School Road and County End last year, basing things off of that. Obviously I can't predict what next year's necessarily going to be for bid pricing. If gas or something takes a hit, I really don't know about that, but based off of current estimating and things like that, I'm definitely going to work as we move forward here on that so that the village has a better estimate here before the budget season and everything like that as well. So that's kind of our next hurdle here in the next month. Like I said, I was trying to get this in front of the board after the developers agreement and everything was signed, so we knew which direction we were going on Bus Road. But that's definitely going to be my next focus, is doing that. But I feel good with where we're at right now and the budgets the preliminary budgets we have out there.
All right.
John.
Yes.
I got one more. Do we know, has Shady Grove signed the developers agreement? Is it crucial that they have that in before we proceed on this at all?
To my knowledge, they have not signed any developers agreement. I have reached out to them, and Larry has talked to them a little bit as well, and we have not definitely gotten a commitment that they're doing anything this year. So we are going to have to work with them, and whether we just kind of plan for it and kind of put in a stub of an intersection for them to take off of. There's definitely some details like that have to be worked out as to where we're going to go.
Yeah, Shady Grove has not engaged with our attorneys at all as far as working through a developer agreement. So they've been in contact as far as checking in on, us checking in on their timeline, but they're a little bit non-committal right now as to when things would happen.
Great, thanks.
All right. Do we have a motion on this then?
I'll make a motion to approve the task order contract with MSA for work related to Bus Road and County Highway Road BB.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, then we have the next one is the Board of Review. We met very briefly on June 2nd, selected a chair, and held the meeting open for the requirement, and just a little bit of planning, future planning as far as training for the board going forward, and then potential dates as we go. And again, the meeting, that meeting is by statute. We are required to meet, open the meeting, and then we had a little discussion, then we closed the meeting. Deb, I don't know if you want to highlight anything else, or Heidi.
Thanks for being chair, John. You did such a good job last year.
It might be a little more interesting this go around, I think, with the reevaluation. So then we have the Library Planning Board. Melissa.
Thank you. We met on June 3rd, and we approved a little free libraries and parks map that shows our parks, and there are also little flags on the map with the addresses on the side of the map that show where the little libraries are in our community. There's at least 19 little free libraries in our community now. We've shared that with Sean at the Parks Department, and he has copies at the Parks and Rec Department for anyone to get, and I think they're also on the website. So thank you, Sean. And at the committee, we also talked about what type of outreach we can do. Now, yeah, there, Sean has it up on the screen, our little free library map with the parks on there. We talked about what type of outreach we can do. We were initially looking at focus groups, but with COVID, now we are working on a survey. We are going to start meeting 2 times a month. The next meeting is on June 24th, where we're going to look at what questions we should ask in the survey and have Michelle Roach with Promote Local that the Friends Group is paying for to help us work on the survey. And we're also going to look at our timeline to see if that needs to be reworked now.
All right. Any questions for Melissa? All right. Thanks, Melissa. Next one is the ad hoc Glacial Drumlin Bike Committee, and that's either Melissa or Sarah, or...
Yes, I will go ahead. I was nominated and unanimously voted chair. I don't know how that happened, but so we met on the 4th, on the 4th of June. Basically, MSA will look at a few other of the suggestions that the committee members had when looking at the draft plan that was shown. We need to have a public involvement in-person meeting. Well, it doesn't have to be in person. We decided we'd like it to be offered in person. We'll have to see as we get closer if we'll be able to do that. We have it tentatively set for July 30th at 6 o'clock, and the suggestion was to meet actually in the parking lot of the village-owned parking lot on Clark Street, close there to the Lions shelter, so that people could visually see the bike path, where it would go, what construction would look like down Clark Street. So that's the plan for our public involvement meeting, again, July 30th at 6. The final plans for the bike path are due in January of 2021, and then construction is set to start summer of 2021, and our next meeting will be July 9th at 4:30 in that same parking lot that I just described on Clark Street. So come and join us if you want to see where the bike path will be.
All right. Any questions for Sarah? All right, then we will move on to the Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee. That's Heidi and myself, but I've been talking a lot. So Heidi, if you're ready, please.
Sure, John, will give your voice a break. So we met on June 9th, our first meeting in a while. So we only had one meeting previous to that, where we talked about developing vision and mission statement for the committee. We also had a lot of ideas in our first meeting. So our chair, Nick, who came and spoke to us a few months ago about sustainability, he started a spreadsheet of items that we can look into doing. We can add items that we've already done, so we can start to measure progress on things like lighting improvements in our various buildings, and then kind of develop new actionable items for the future and start to gather information about those. So kind of assigning different research projects based on that ongoing list. So if you ever have an idea for sustainability, you can pass that on to John or myself, or Lisa knows how to get in touch with Nick to forward any ideas or messages you have to him. And we can add it on our sheet. And we're also interested in starting some web presence and social media presence about sustainability in Cottage Grove, things residents can do, things we're doing. So there's a couple memos in your packet. One is to allocate some staff time to working with sustainability committee members on adding a sustainability portion on our webpage. So that's something for us to consider tonight. Anyone have any questions about what we put on the webpage, or we kind of want to have a hashtag of some type? So if you're doing cleanup in your neighborhood or something, you could post it on social media for people to see.
I think that's a great idea. I was really impressed when I saw the recommendations, and so I will make one note that I don't know if you guys have seen the 2020 Dane County Climate Action Plan. Like, that has a lot of things in it. Maybe that can give you guys a direction or ideas anyway for our community. And also I will make a motion to approve some staff time to develop a sustainability page on the village website for the ad hoc sustainability committee.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Then any questions or further discussion? All right, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Oops. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. And then Heidi is going to get into the second discuss and consider, I think, right?
Yep. So the next memo in your packet is about the vision and mission statement of the committee. I would think that we would want that on our webpage that we'll be linking to on our village website. So the vision statement: inspired to develop Cottage Grove as a forward-thinking, sustainable, and ecologically mindful community for residents to enjoy tomorrow and beyond. And a mission statement: to educate and enhance the village of Cottage Grove for a future sustainable community. So we did some wordsmithing on that. I don't know if anyone has any comments, or I think this is a vision and mission statement for this committee.
So that would go on your portion of the webpage then. Like, it would be up there on that part of the website.
Yeah, if you clicked on sustainability from the website, just kind of help guide us in our work on the sustainability committee.
I will make a motion to approve the vision and mission statements of the ad hoc sustainability committee.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks,
So-
Heidi.
Sure, I think our next meeting then is July 7th. So
Yes.
thanks.
All right, and don't go far because you're up next with the Utility Commission.
All right. Well, so Utility Commission met June 10th. It was a relatively brief meeting. Want to acknowledge JJ for his work on the Compliance Maintenance Annual Report because, of course, we have a great score on that. So thank you, JJ. But one of the main things we discussed was fee absorption for paying your utility bill online, and the commission recommended to move forward with that in the future, so you will continue to be able to pay your utility bill online with no fee. So, JJ, you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I was just thrilled the Utility Commission authorized us to keep doing that.
It saves a lot of work, and it's convenient for our residents to be able to pay online and now without a fee. So,
All right, thanks, Heidi and JJ. Then we'll move on to Plan Commission. I'll take initial stab at this and then let Melissa jump in if I mess it up at all. We met on June 10th. We did have some public feedback from Paul Wagner from Grey Wolf, as well as Joe Wagner, in regards to the second hotel proposed. So we took that feedback. Then we had discuss and consider, which is actually on here. We've got several discuss and considers. We went through the Houston Hotel Group's request for precise implementation plan, which was approved unanimously by the commission. We discussed and consider requests for Ferris Auto site plan amendment, and also approved unanimously, and we can get into further details if the board desires. Then, as Heidi alluded to earlier, we had a formal request, which the board received from the town of Sun Prairie to engage in a boundary agreement discussions, which the commission said approved as well. Then we set some public hearing draft for the comprehensive plan. So major changes there that Aaron walked through were the area across from Bakken Park. There was consideration of additional piece of property there to really make that Olson development more viable, at least for the developer. And that was also approved. And we then also discussed and considered the participation of the plan and setting a public hearing date proposed for amendments for a comprehensive plan. So they're kind of hand in hand there. And then discussed the potential subdivision ordinance amendment to extend a deadline regarding certified survey maps. This was really because the ordinance seemed to be, it's not in line with the state statute. So the Plan Commission said also approved that and work to be done on that ordinance to make it actually coordinate with the state to make it easier. I think our current ordinance says within 30 days or something like that. So it really didn't. We had a situation with the Hamburg property that it didn't get submitted on time. And then finally, we discussed moving our date for the Plan Commission so it can correspond to public hearing to allow us the sufficient amount of time for that. So that was to be moved to July 15th. Melissa, did I miss anything?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay, and then so we have a few discuss and consider items on here. We'll start with the first one. If there's this one's related to the request for the Houston Hotel Group for approval for precise implementation plan for Atwell Suites at 4672 County Highway TT. I see a representative of the developer is on our Zoom. So Troy, I don't know if you want to say anything. You're connecting to audio, so certainly does. He's patiently waited this long.
You have me, John?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Just as a refresher, this is a 97 unit. I think at one point in time we were listed as 96 room hotel. It's an Atwell Suites by IHG. It is a upper mid-scale hotel which goes after business travelers and weekend sports families and that type of thing. We do have kind of a restaurant light planned, which is part of the prototype, along with some bar service that is not really open to the public kind of a facility, but more for the weary traveler arriving, wanting a drink before they go to their room and head out to dinner. We expect to break ground on that project late summer, early fall. We're in the process of bidding that project actively right now. The architectural plans are nearing completion. I've got the architect, Scott England, has joined us on this call as well, if there's any questions for him. And now that we're finalizing some projections and whatnot, this hotel should generate in excess of $700,000 annually in payroll. So if we can get as many folks from Cottage Grove as possible to come work for us, we could be recycling those dollars throughout the business community.
All right. Any questions for Troy or Scott?
Yeah.
From the board?
Sorry,
Yes,
Troy,
Sarah.
quick question. Yep, this is Sarah. Based on your last comment on the payroll, do you have a sense of what the average hourly wage would be for a staff person at the hotel?
Yeah, I can break it down because there's a lot of different variations. The average general manager position for a hotel like this would be somewhere in the 60 to 80,000 range, depending upon experience. And then you've got a few other salaried positions, night auditors, assistant GMs, director of housekeeping. Those are 40 to 50,000, maybe 60, depending upon experience. And then from there, we would be getting into housekeeping and maintenance people, and those are, probably mid-teens to start generally. It's a pretty competitive labor market, but there are a lot of people leaving unemployment, coming back into the market and moving from one hotel to the other to get that raise if they can get it. And so it's a pretty fluid labor force right now. I'm in the process of opening 4 other hotels that we've had closed for several months, and we're finding about 60 to 70% of our staff returning, and us filling the balance with employees from our previous competitors.
Thank you. That will be helpful information for us as we get started on our housing task force to have a good sense of income. So thank you so much.
All right. Other questions for Troy or Scott? Again, this is approved by the Planning Commission. We went through the specs of the project as well. So if there's anything that anybody wants to know about, I think we've got the right folks on the line. Otherwise, I look for a motion on this.
Do we have any other
I'll move.
that need explaining from staff, or they're all pretty straightforward in the memo?
I think so. Aaron, I don't know if you want to touch on this, and it's fairly straightforward, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Just a reminder, this is the second step of the planned unit development approval. The general development plan has already been approved. This is substantially similar to that. So I know my conditions were fairly straightforward, more reminders for future steps than actual tasks for the developer. I don't know if Kevin had anything specific you wanted to point out in his, but
I wouldn't say I'd have anything specific. I think they're pointed out in here pretty decent. A lot of them was just regarding not knowing how the lots were all going to lay out over there. So for just trespassing, a type of light trespass and different things like that. So things we can work with them on. And then we have been in contact with them since the last meeting as well regarding stormwater. So just going through some of their stormwater submittals and everything like that. So otherwise, I think it was pretty kind of a lot of standard things that we'll just work with them on as they go through it.
Thank you both.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. I'll move to approve the Atwell Suites precise implementation plan with the conditions as indicated in the village action report.
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Jeff, first by Sarah. Any further discussion?
Just one comment, John, that
Yes.
this will conclude the site plan and zoning aspect of the project, but there is a forthcoming developer agreement that will be worked on shortly. So that will come back to the board at a later date.
Yep, correct. All right. Any other discussion or comments? All right. All right, having heard none, we have a motion and second on this. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Troy and Scott, for sticking with us.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
Good evening.
You as well. Second item on Plan Commission is discuss and consider request from Ferris Auto for a site plan amendment on the property at 212 West Cottage Grove Road. This was approved by the commission as well. Aaron, you want to touch on this one? And it looks like maybe I don't know if we have.
See a car guy, if I had to guess, I'd assume that's.
I'm thinking you're right.
Yeah, this is Sean. I'm not the owners, but I just came in to watch the video. Gerard and John are not on right now.
Yeah, I know they had kind of a family emergency over the past week or so that they're not available for these meetings, but certainly are aware of them and have been in touch.
John had a new addition to the Ferris family, so future growth.
Yeah. So you'll recall we did approve a conditional use permit a few months back, kind of setting the parameters within which they'll be continuing to operate. That conditional use permit was based on a concept plan. The site plan is just a little more specific version of that. The only change from the concept is the orientation of the new sales building. They kind of flipped it 90 degrees. But other than that, we recommended approval. The Plan Commission did add one condition regarding the shape of the roof. The submittal shows kind of a single sloped shed style roof. The Plan Commission preferred more of a double sloped gabled roof. Corresponded with John earlier. They would prefer to stick with the shed roof just for cost reasons and because they've kind of gone down the road of designing it. But ultimately, that would be up to the board on whether to keep that condition or not.
Yeah,
Aaron, was there a reason for that, or just I guess I'm trying to understand why the Plan Commission would feel strongly enough to put that in the condition? Just aesthetics?
Yeah, it was aesthetics compared to because they changed the orientation of the building compared to the existing repair shop. Some of the Plan Commission talked about whether or not there would be a cost impact to Ferris, and at that time, unfortunately, they weren't on. We couldn't get that feedback. Obviously, Aaron followed back up with him and discovered that was potentially there is an impact according to them. So that's just another consideration for this board, whether or not aesthetically you feel like a slope roof versus a gabled roof for this sales office. Aaron, have I captured that correctly?
Yeah,
Melissa?
it was an aesthetic issue for the Plan Commission. I guess the way I talked about it at Plan Commission, I might have some concern that the gabled roof might look a little too residential in this location, and the single slope might actually look like more of a commercial type building. So, from the staff perspective, I didn't mind it the way it was. But yeah, John did point out he thought it could be as much as a $10,000 difference.
Oh.
And the reason why is because they got to add more structure to the top of it. So it wasn't about, I think John and I talked about it with Gerard, and part of it is, was it a concern that it would look like a shed? Absolutely not, but it was more because you have to build up to make it a V pitch. So that's what they were talking about earlier.
And I have one other question. It does not look like it was a unanimous. It would look like there were 3 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstain. But I'm trying to understand. Is there any indication as to why somebody would have voted against or abstained? I'm trying to just get a sense what the debate was at the Plan Commission around this.
I don't recall that I didn't explain that specifically. Why they voted?
No, there was no definite explanation, but I think there was concern by one member as far as whether it was Plan Commission's spot to decide on the type of roof a building should have, but I'm not positive that that's why they didn't vote for it, for the motion.
And members don't have to explain their reasoning, but I think that's where it was coming from based on the comments that were had. So certainly this board can decide to follow the commission's route or something else.
I would note that I was concerned about the slanted roof as opposed to a gable roof. Thinking about the neighbors and their concern about how this property looked. And when I look at the plans as they're presented to us with the single sloped roof, to me, it doesn't, I'm not a visionary, I guess. I don't see necessarily how that's going to look in that spot. And being visible from the road, I just think it needed a more, a different look than as presented. And maybe it's just because it's flat on paper. But that's my reason for voting for the gabled roof.
And again, the commission didn't know the impact from the cost perspective. We didn't have that. So I believe the general, and I'm speaking from my perspective in the commission, general sense, at least from my perspective as a member, is making improvements to the site would be wonderful, and we want to see that happen. So if this change in roof is a sizable impact to the project, which it sounds like it is, then I'd be concerned about putting the gabled roof condition on there.
Is this in a TID? I forget. We have so many now.
Yes.
Okay. And they haven't applied for any, though? Any TID funding?
No.
But it's possible they could.
They could.
Okay.
Is there a timeline at all on the project?
I think they're itching to get going. I know they're.
We're ready. We're definitely ready to go. We want to improve it and get it going. I work with the guys, so I'm there every day. I'm Sean. I know that they couldn't be present, but I wanted to join on the meeting because obviously we're ready to break ground and make the appearance much more pleasurable than it was. That's for sure, or what it is.
All right, this is discuss and consider. Anybody have any other points to make here, or is someone ready to make a motion?
I just want to make one point about the roof change. If you're adding costs somewhere, you're probably going to have to take away costs somewhere else, which may affect the materials used on the exterior of the building. So I'm inclined to support keeping the design as it was presented by the applicant and not changing to a gabled roof condition, because I think that there's probably a give and take, and I think I like that there's different texture on the building's exterior. I think that'll help break it up. So I will make a motion to approve the Ferris Auto site plan amendment for property at 212 West Cottage Grove Road, removing the gabled roof condition, but leaving other conditions in the staff report.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's a second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All right.
Is there anything that we have to do to move forward to start? Can we start the back lot and at least proceed with at least phase one? Is that what basically, are we okay with that?
Yeah, I think the main condition that would need to be addressed yet is just working out some of the stormwater details with our engineer.
Sure.
I know you're planning on a pond in the back where we just need to make sure it works.
Okay.
Plus the added water that's coming off the new parking lot.
Obviously, yeah, there's a lot of space and nowhere for it to go.
So,
all right. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, then item C then is discuss and consider a request from the town of Sunbury to engage in a boundary agreement discussions, and that was part of the Plan Commission as well. And everybody saw the letter from town chair. Any discussion on this item?
I'll make a motion that we engage in boundary agreement discussions with the town of Sun Prairie.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion then?
I'm wondering what priority this takes as opposed to with the town of Cottage Grove, considering it does take staff time and resources.
The board can put that stipulation certainly on the motion, or certainly that one, and Melissa, as you know, is already moving down the road as far as those discussions. We've had a couple meetings now. I would say, and I would agree with your concern, that this is not as a high priority compared to that, and then also discussions with Madison. So I'd defer to Matt on that as far as how he thinks this would fit in with everything else going on, and maybe we want to adjust the motion based on his thoughts.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to continue trying. We're making progress on the Town of Cottage Grove and the City of Madison agreement, and but Aaron can try to find some time to do some initial work on the Town of Sun Prairie stuff. We also can put the ball in their court to see what they want to propose as well, and then Aaron can work on reviewing that and going through the Plan Commission and then back to the board. So it's a bit of a process. One of the hang-ups a handful of years ago was, Aaron and I seem to remember, it was a financial concern, because at that time, Aaron was a consultant for Gray, so we were paying him by the hour, and it just got to a point where the discussions were taking a long time and it was costing us a lot of money. So we were seeking to partner with the town on sharing those costs. A lot of times towns don't have, they may not have a planner or other staff and things like that. So oftentimes it falls on a village or city. So from that standpoint, it just kind of died down. But now it's more of a time concern, and we're, as you can see with this agenda, we're pretty busy. So I guess it's a long rambling answer, but I think we just try to work on it as we can, but with the understanding that it's not on the upper half of the priorities.
With that effort we started 5 years or so ago, we're not starting from scratch now. We have all that background and work to pull out and kind of start from.
Melissa, does that help, or would you like the amendment or the motion, something included regarding the prioritization?
Staff's, Matt and Aaron's explanation should be fine. My other concern is just how fast this was brought to our attention and how fast the town of Sun Prairie seems to want to move on it, I guess. So I guess we'll just see where it goes.
I think that we had communications back through to them about the process in general. I sent them a note a while back, as well as members of the CARPC, and Heidi was pulled into this because she got pulled into it because of her role in CARPC. So they understand that we do have a formal process of going back through and working with Plan Commission, then through board. So it definitely takes a little bit to get anything going. So I don't see it moving down the tracks very quickly. But we'll engage, I think, as long as the board approves it and see where it progresses.
We've had productive conversations with them related to the urban service area agreement, and I think the town just wants to make sure those conversations don't get lost over time.
All right. We have a motion and a second then, with some good discussion in between. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right. Having heard none, all those in favor of starting the engagement?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, then we'll move on to reports from village officers. Stanford legal briefings and status updates. Larry?
I don't really have anything else to add other than the things we added to the calendar.
Okay. I think we didn't hear, I think the initial part, it sounded like you said nothing to add.
Nothing to add. We added it all to the calendar.
All right. Very good. Then item B then is COVID-19 updates. I think we'll do the usual circuit, starting with Matt.
Yes, and I'm happy to report I don't have much to report, so that's a good thing. We're continuing to move forward with our reopen, and some of the other staff will kind of cover that. But Dane County announced that phase 2 of the reopen started this morning, I believe, and so we'll just kind of run through that. Some departments are more impacted by that than others. And then we also have a consider about continuing to meet virtual or in person later on. But through this phase 2 and the guidelines, I think, help give the board direction as to how to approach that. That's all I have, John.
All right, thanks, Matt. Chief Labor.
Business as usual. We're trying to get back to normal here. Police operations functioning pretty much like we were before COVID. We still get reports from dispatch before we'll go into a house. If they do have COVID, we wait outside. Unless it's an emergency, then we go in with proper equipment on. But pretty much business is normal now.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Lieutenant Wagner.
Matt stole my thunder by saying we're moved into phase 2. I was looking forward to that all meeting, but I guess I lost it. No, we're doing everything's still good at the village. We do have somewhat of a total. I've been getting all the receipts from Deb and all the department heads. So up to this point, not including our percentage with the fire department and Deer Grove EMS, we have receipts with a running total of $12,126.77. I had a phone conversation with Dane County Emergency Management today about the fire department / EMS and how we're going to work on that percentage. And the answer I got is they don't know. So we got to kind of wait, and I think they're going to work through that and come up with best practices, and then get back to all the municipalities that deal with joint services like that. So once I get an update on that, I will definitely present it to you all, and we'll get those figures. If there's any other data or anything else you guys want from me, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll get it ready and prepare it for you and send it in a memo or prepare it or give it to you guys at this meeting.
All right. Thanks, Matt. JJ.
Can I ask a quick question first of
sure.
Lieutenant? Sorry,
Yes.
JJ. I tried to raise my hand feature, but I don't think it worked. I'm going to click lower. My question for you, Lieutenant, is are we able to put any of the salaries of yours with emergency management and other directors for expenses?
The only thing that we can use when it comes to salaries and overtime, if it was actually specifically COVID related, and it wasn't already a budgetary item. So salary employees like department heads, we're going to have a hard time justifying why we should get reimbursement or that, or even the emergency government director money, because that was already a budgeted item. But anything above that, when it comes to actual staff that came in on overtime, for an example, for the vestibule for the election, JJ coming in on his own time. I mean, that stuff we can submit. More than likely he'll get denied since he's a salaried employee, but we can still try.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Sarah. JJ.
Nothing new from our department. Same as we've been now for 3 months. Just reminded me that I owe the lieutenant an update of my cost spreadsheet. So add a few more $100 onto that 12,000 total we just gave.
All right, and then Sean.
As everyone's already mentioned, moved into phase 2, so that means our playgrounds are open. So I put out a Facebook post earlier this evening and just asked people to be patient as we try and get those as clean and sanitized as humanly possible. We're just continuing to plug along. We kind of opened up the shelters today, removed some picnic tables from some areas just to make sure that we have social distancing and that we're ready for shelter reservations to resume as of July 1st. So, it's getting busy again. Like it. It's fun. If I could just use this platform and just give you there we go. I just wanted to show you where we were at with our Bakken Park construction real quick. Exterior walls are almost complete, and they are now working on the interior walls. And you can kind of see what the outdoor part of the shelter will look like. That's the I-beams to the lower right of the picture. So, good stuff.
All right. Any questions for Sean or any other staff members? All right, thanks everybody. Then we'll move on to communication and miscellaneous business, starting with consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, I have one item. that Melissa sent along, and I think the rest of us got, related to the Colonial Club, and this is really just a plug, and which is also on the front page of our website. They're beginning some of their new routes, and they are in need of some delivery drivers. So reach out to your friends, your neighbors. These guys are doing great work. If someone can give up some time to deliver a meal, please feel free to let them know, and then get a hold of, I think it's Laura Jennings, and that we do have a link on the site too as well. And that is, she's at 608-837-4611, extension 129. Melissa, anything to add? I know you're in communication with Bob sometimes.
No, thank you for bringing that up, and I was really pleased to see it on the website. I wasn't expecting that, so that's great that we can help get that out there. You did forget, though, to mention that Cottage Grove is ranked number 16 among Wisconsin's 20 safest cities. So we got that correspondence, so I thought that was pretty good.
You beat me to it, so that was my next thing. Took my time.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I figured that was correspondence, right?
Yes. It's a nice plug for the village, I think. And so, certainly we can take a little pride in that. And I think not only safest city, but I would say there's a lot of other really great attributes about the village. But that's just me being a kind of the chairperson cheering us on to keep going. So there's a lot of great stuff going on. So, but it was nice to be recognized, and thank you for that. Upcoming community events. We have an.
I have one.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. We might have the same one.
You go ahead first, then.
Oh, it was also about the Colonial Club and their Strawberry Festival coming up this weekend. They'll have drive-through and pick-up items. So that's their big fundraiser, and it is severely impacted by COVID-19 this year, so they need all the extra support, and you can get a strawberry shortcake.
All right. Melissa, was that yours?
That was mine. I'm hoping that we can put that up on our website, too. Just push that out there.
Okay.
Gives people a place to go and help our community.
Yep, I can. Lisa, is that you came under me? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, we can do that. If you can send me the information, Melissa, I'd be happy to do that.
You bet I will.
Thank you.
That is coming
and
up.
John,
Yes, Matt.
The chamber is doing a socially distanced chamber meeting this month on the 25th at noon in the parking lot of New Life Church. So it's going to be like a tailgate.
I saw that.
So, yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. And then we also hear, if there's any other ones, we do have an update for the Cottage Grove Fire Department reporting on fireworks on July 3rd. There is information in your packet regarding that. I don't know if anybody from the fire department hung around for this, but if they did, good on you.
Jason? Yeah, I'm still here. I'm here if anyone has any questions about our plan.
Go ahead.
I do have a question, unless, John, do you have something you want to ask?
The only thing I wanted to say, what a great way to try to celebrate in this current environment. We don't have the Fireman's Festival, unfortunately. A lot of other things, certainly impacted. This really has impacted every facet of our lives, and unfortunately, we've lost a few along the way as well. So I think launching them from one of the highest points in the village, I think will not only shine in the village, but we're going to have a few people on the east side of Madison shouting out too, I think. So,
yeah, that's our plan.
Okay.
We had a donation from TDS for the fireworks for the festival, so that was still sitting there. We got lucky. The July 3rd opened up, so we snatched that date, and we're just going to push people to stay home, watch them from their backyards, their driveways, whatever, and hopefully they're high enough everybody can see them.
All right.
Jason, what do you mean when you say July 3rd opened up? I don't.
The fireworks company that we worked with.
Oh.
They originally had another show scheduled that day, but that show backed out, so they had a crew come available. So.
Okay. Cool.
I think it's really awesome that we're doing that for our residents, and I think it's going to bring a little bit of joy to 4th of July weekend for a lot of people. But I'm a little bit concerned that there's probably a lot of other events in the area that may have been canceled, so we might still draw some kind of driving crowd. And there are a number of dead-end streets, Pheasant Run, Morning Dove, Red Hawk, that people might try to drive to get a closer view, and they're not really easy to turn around if there needed to be any emergency vehicles to go that route, or can we close off that neighborhood for a time? Or I guess I just want to make sure that people can get safely in and out of that neighborhood with the long dead ends. And then also, just behind us in the town, those are kind of long dead ends on Pheasant Run and Morning Dove also.
Yeah. I don't think we can close off any roads. We are going to encourage people to stay home and watch them. We're going to discourage any sort of illegal parking or, parking in parking lots without the owner's permission, that kind of stuff. But I don't think we can control people, the entire village. People are going to park where they're going to want to park. So
I think the advantage of launching it from one of the highest points should give everybody, unless they have a tree in front of them or another building, they should be able to see them from most of the village, I suspect. But I understand your concern, Heidi.
Yeah, will GDS parking lot be open, or do they know? I mean, I guess you're launching them from their site, so they obviously.
Well, it's the construction site behind the school building, so it's actually Hamburg's land that we're launching from. I will reach out to the school and just let them know, leave it up to them if they want to open up their parking lots or not. It'll be kind of up to the business owners as far as what they want to do. But our plan is to launch start about an hour ahead of time, like every 15 minutes, we'll launch one shell so people can kind of see if they can see from home, and hopefully they'll be able to see. And if not, then they can find a location that they can watch from as well. So.
Will we need any police department help in the area for any reason? I guess now that I'm a call chief, do you have any thoughts on it?
We'll be in the area obviously that night, so we'll direct our attention up there, and we'll do what we can. Should have at least 2 people on that can divert up there, and unless an emergency arises.
And we'll have a crew up there as well, a fire truck and a crew, just in case anything should catch fire or have an accident up there. So we'll be up there as well.
Heidi, were you saying to block off Damascus Trail so that people can't go into those one-way dead-end streets or dead-end streets?
I'm just thinking if just turning around on those streets, if there's cars parked all the way to the end, and it might be logistically difficult, or if someone's parked in front of a fire hydrant, if maybe only parking on one side just for that day, or I'm not sure if there's any way that we can, or if we just leave it open. I'm not sure if we want to consider either of those options.
When we do the normal fireworks, I don't think, well, that's from usually in the Bakken Park area. Do we have any temporary no parking on certain streets, or?
Not really. It's, it draws crowds, but for the most part, people stay in place. So, we're kind of hesitant to try to block off streets, because then you're putting officers at those locations, and then we really don't have the personnel to do all of that traffic control. And this is a first time event, so I'm not really sure what sort of traffic problems it will present. But I guess they can evaluate that. If it turns into an issue, then we'll take appropriate action that night.
All right, any other discussion on this? All right, thanks, Jason, for sticking around.
Yep, you bet.
Discuss and consider future board meetings to be virtual or in person is the next item. So whether we continue with Zoom or we find a very large area to social distance, I think is the question. And this is going to be a recurring, I think, item on a lot of the committees. So does board members have opinions on this?
We had 29 people on the call tonight. That's a lot of people to fit into Village Hall to maintain social distancing. And at Plan Commission, we had 26 on the call. And that's still quite a bit. So I'm all for staying virtual for now.
Likewise, I think Executive Parisi said it well. I don't see any reason why to push that to doing in person. My opinion.
I would agree. No need to push it.
Any other opinions? Is there a motion then?
I'll make a motion to continue to do virtual board meetings for the unforeseen future, and we could take it up at any future time.
I'll second that.
All right, motion second then. Any further discussion?
John, just one suggestion. If at any point, if a board member wants to bring it up, if you want to request it as a future agenda item, we can then we can get it on the following agenda. But that can kind of be the trigger for either that or if Dane County Health comes up with different guidelines. Either or.
Okay.
And then,
go ahead,
quick question: what about the subcommittees? Are those at the discretion of each committee and their chair?
That's where we've left it thus far, because we certainly don't want to pressure anyone. We also have, I know in certain committees we have folks that are at high risk, and we should take that in consideration if we're a chair of a committee. Listen to folks, because we definitely we want everybody to be comfortable in this time, for sure.
Yeah, that was the suggestion, because some of the committees outside of Plan Commission and the board, unless there's a particular hot button item, the smaller committees likely can social distance in person, recommended with masks if they would like to meet that way. So that's just an option.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, we have tentatively scheduled in person for the Bike Path Committee meeting in the beginning of July, and then the public version of that at the end of July. So I don't know if we can talk about that if anybody has feedback for me afterwards or later.
Well, the bike path, though, that's going to meet outside, and outside is a little different than an enclosed space for extended periods. So that's why I'm okay with the bike path. Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody has any grave concerns, let me know.
No, I think that's reasonable. It's outside. And you would have heard, I would hope, from your committee members, too, if someone was concerned, because that's really, maybe as chairs will ask twice, just to make sure.
Right. Yeah, it was their idea, so I think we're good.
All right. So we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Future agenda items. We'll probably have a few. Matt or Aaron, I think we've got some flowing through.
We will have with one of the next, potentially the next meeting, the emergency management plan and ordinance. Legal has made good progress, but there's a lot going on last week, and we just didn't have a chance to get that on for this meeting. But we're meeting with Chief and Lieutenant Wagner this week to discuss the progress on the ordinance revisions and the emergency management plan. So that should be coming up.
We'll have perhaps the priorities then, a full list for discussion. The usual committee meeting that meet between now and then. And then the other main ones, COVID updates, etc. That's what I can think of right now. All right. Then we move on to a closed session, if no one else has anything else. And I'll start with the motion since this is a bit of a reader. Closed session, Village of Cottage Grove Board for the first closed session, and this is related to an operator's application, the alcohol beverage license denial from the police department. And so we'll reconvene another Zoom and momentarily after we get the roll call. So the closed session is the Village of Cottage Grove Board will enter in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851, parentheses 1, parentheses F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or discretionary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems or investigations of charges against specific persons except for where par parentheses B applies, which if discussed in public would likely have substantial adverse effects upon the reputation of any persons in return of such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. And then we'd have a roll call, and then just a moment of clarity for Larry, I guess. We have a second closed session, then should we'll do a roll call on this and then do a roll call on that and hold them both at the same time, or one after the other in our Zoom call?
Yeah, let's do it that way. So, I'm getting some feedback. Let's do it that way so we get through it in a reasonable fashion.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and second for the first closed session. We'll do a roll call vote from Lisa.
Murphy,
Aye.
Vandervelde,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Allen,
Aye.
Radcliffe,
Aye.
Lindbergh,
I think Jeff had to drop off.
okay. Valencia,
Aye.
All right. We will go into that closed session right after I read this one. So the second closed session that will follow on the first closed session is related to consideration the village administrator mid-year evaluation. The Village of Cottage Grove Board will, I'll make the motion that the Village of Cottage Grove will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee other than the public over which the public body has jurisdiction or exercise a responsibility.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then for the second closed session, which will be follow the first one, and we'll do a roll call on that.
Lindbergh is not there. Sorry. Allen,
Aye.
Valencia,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Vandervelde,
Aye.
All right, we will jump into our closed sessions if we jump off this call. Thanks, everybody.